Forvitni, Skapa, Speki. Good evening, my friends, and welcome to Evil Bedtime Stories. I'm your host, hravntyr, and tonight I want to cover an analog series I found called Arcadia by Chilling Abyss, about the dangers of sending signals between parallel universes. Before watching this video, go over to Chilling Abyss's channel, watch the originals, subscribe to them, and then leave a comment below when you get back telling me what you think. If you like what I do, sub to the channel, like and share the video around to let the algorithm gods know that we exist. And that should be more than enough time for everyone to get back, so let's begin with Chapter 1. Welcome to Arcadia. Deep Sea Live. We open on a local television station called Arcadia TV's lineup, with such illustrious installments as Deep Sea Live at 10 p.m., Forest Night Hike at 11:30, Skywatching at 12:30, and paid programming at 2 a.m. We see it is currently 9:58 p.m., and the cows in the background look the proper mix of disinterested and bloated behind the text. A bold choice for a local late-night programmer in the 80s. Deep Sea Live begins, and I want to point out this mountain logo in the bottom right-hand corner. I just pointed the exact opposite direction of where this mountain logo in the bottom right-hand corner. Keep it in mind as we move forward. We're going to see it a little bit. We see a beach's rolling waves in the afternoon, and the screen bleeds into a text block that reads, "Welcome to the highly anticipated premiere of Deep Sea Live. For the past few months, we've been working tirelessly to create an unparalleled viewing experience. Welcome to the highly anticipated premiere of Deep Sea Live. For the past few months, we've been working tirelessly to create an unparalleled viewing experience. Thanks to the generous support of our sponsors, the Deep Blue Foundation and Spectrum Innovations. We are thrilled to bring you an incredible, never-before-seen experience that will take you deep into the ocean's mysterious depths. Get ready to experience the ocean like never before as you peer through our new state-of-the-art camera, focused intently on the pit, a seemingly bottomless hole of unknown depths. We see a diagram of a spherical submersible and the text, "The vessel will be operated by a single individual who will provide captions for what you observe. We sincerely hope you enjoy the broadcast." The screens open to a thick murk, yellow floodlights straining as hard as they can to show a few feet of silt and sand at the bottom of this water. We see bits and pieces suspended in the mix like snow in slow motion, the clock showing the time turn from 9:59 to 10 p.m. We see a message reading "enabling hydrophone," and we can hear the gurgling of open oceans. At 10:08, we hear some noises, and the sub-operator titles them whales. At 10:22 p.m., we see a large, long, dark brown fish pass by the camera, mouth filled with sharp, needle-like teeth. The operator labels this a dragonfish. At 10:31, we hear a strange, burbling noise, and the subtitler doesn't seem to know what it is either, labeling it unknown. 10:43, we see an eerie set of yellow eyes blink into life in the distant murk beyond the floodlight's feeble rays. In all the entries thus far, the subtitles have shown up fairly quickly. Here, staring down these glowing points in the creeping abyss, the sub-operator pauses, processing what they see. The eyes wink out, and after a heartbeat, the subtitler manages a single question mark. 10:54, we hear clanging, knocking, and banging on the side of the sub, like claws being raked across the hull. The screen cuts to black, flashing a system malfunction warning and a time of 0000. Light and sound are gone. Attempting system reboot. We hear a gurgling and see the fading floodlights flickering at the bottom of the sea. One of them seems to have gone out completely. The words "recall the sub" flash on screen. "Please help me." After a long pause, it sounds like something powers down as the word "God" is put on screen. We see something with those yellow eyes run at the camera, leading to a hard cut of text that reads "technical difficulties. Please stand by," set to some jaunty jazz music. The next video is called Mythical Creatures, and it starts with a warning screen that reads, "Warning. While you may have been told by your parents that monsters aren't real, the truth is that they do exist and can cause harm. If you or someone you know has recently come into contact with an unusual entity, please notify your local authorities immediately." We cut to a dreamy star sky, midnight safety guide scrawled across it in bold white font. Beneath it we read Episode 4, Mythical Creatures. A slide starts with, "In recent years, a growing number of anomalous entities have been documented. Mythical creatures are among the more recent additions to this list." We see what looks like a stick person with large wings at the bottom of the screen. The text continues with, "Mythical creatures can manifest in various forms, but a common characteristic is their humanoid appearance." The next slide says, "They appear only at night, often concealing themselves behind closed doors or obscured windows." We see a picture of a door and some curtains. The curtains are replaced with a human, and there are sound indicators above the door. We read, "They will try to gain your attention" above it. Staying quiet and still may prompt them to leave. However, once you engage with them, they become aware of your identity, the screen distorting into waving static as it finishes the last words.
there somebody there? Can you hear me?
We cut to a bedroom at night, watching someone hold a weak flashlight on the inside of their bedroom door. Mandala catalog vibes for sure. We hear rustling, rapid knocking, then banging on the door. A beat, and a rapid, high-pitched voice asks, "Hello, is there somebody there? Can you hear me?" We're then shown that they will offer you something desirable, with a gem depicted above this winged figure. It says that it is important not to accept their offer, or any items they present. If you refuse to accept any offerings, the creature may become increasingly hostile. The winged figure begins to waver rapidly. We're told its physical form will warp and decay over time. We hard cut back to the bedroom. The door slowly creaks open, leaving a tear into the darkened hall beyond. We hear whispers, what sounds to me like, "Come on," as if someone were egging something to confront them. A cancerous growth oozes from the doorframe, just enough to notice, before cutting back to more information on that dreamy night sky. It says if you survive 30 days, the creature will vanish. 30 days. It will leave behind a strange marking, and we see what looks like a backward 7 with 2 dots above it, what looks to be a severed eye looking upward, and connective tissue hanging down below it, and what could be a humanoid shape with crossed ankles and an outstretched arm. We're told this is the creature's name and that there have only been 3 documented instances of individuals surviving the 30 days. Sorry, I know that I'm cutting back and forth between the script and the actual recording here. It's my first one, so patience. Thanks, guys. We're going to put that in bloopers at the end. Let's see. Back in the bedroom, the door is pushed wide open, and we see a small, fleshy head from around the doorframe. The young girl behind the camera screams, and the screen cuts back to the stars. "Now you know" is written, and we fade to black. I'll be honest with everyone here, if I hadn't started this series further down in the line, I probably would have just moved on at this point. I will tell you this, we're about to make what seems like a very hard pivot, yet we'll see towards the end that it is all tied together and it's actually an extremely substantial story. So I know it starts out kind of strange. It seems like it's kind of juvenile in its beginnings, but stick with me here. It gets very, very good very quickly. All right. So thanks for sticking with me. Our next chapter is called Arcadia Apology. We begin with the text that says, "We are deeply sorry for the delay in our response to the recent incident on Deep Sea Live. We understand that many viewers were frightened by what they saw, and we sincerely apologize for any distress caused. The incident was the result of a rogue employee who played a prank on our viewers. We have taken immediate action to terminate this employee and to implement new security measures to prevent this from happening again. We understand that Arcadia TV is a place where people come to relax and unwind. We are committed to providing a safe and enjoyable experience for our viewers, and we will continue to work hard to earn back your trust. We hope that you will accept our apology and continue to enjoy our program. Thank you for your understanding. Sincerely, the Arcadia team. So I'm going to be direct about this. We can confirm the Deep Sea Live incident persists in the lore, right? Because it was brought up in this apology. It's not a one-off thing that it seems like it kind of is. These aren't non sequiturs. They're all tied together with a very defined thread. And I want to make that clear because it wasn't until this point in the series that I saw everything was kind of connected. You know what I mean? It really did seem like a Mandela Catalog's kind of rip off. But like I said, it does get very, very good. Went off my script to clarify something that I pretty much entirely clarified already. Another bit to put into the bloopers at the end of the video, I suppose. I should stop moving. I took all that time to make sure that I was in a good spot. All right. At the end of the apology video, we flash to the encroaching night, fast following a waning sun over black treetops. We see this is just the beginning in the sky, and garbled audio phases in and out. The video ends with the ominous warning of there is more to come. More to come indeed, my friends. The next chapter is called The Crying Cave. The shot opens on a rolling field of golden grain, an autumnal scorch mark flaring brightly through the trees in the background. Birds chirp and sing, and we see the vibrancy of the picture fade, accentuating a small ring in the top left corner. After a heartbeat, we see what looks like a body drop from the sharp blue sky, disappearing behind the towering canopy. We cut to a screen that reads, "A body was found near," and we see a white bar redacting the following information, ending with just a date, July 19th. We're told a folded missing persons poster and a video camera were found close to the body. We're shown the recovered missing poster, 3 pictures of teenagers across its top. Sarah Brown, 16 years old on the left, Jack Miller, possibly 13 years old in the middle, and Daniel Smith, 15 years old on the right. Below it says, "Last seen July 17th, entering the Crying Cave. If you have information, contact local authorities." As the poster pulls back, text below it reads, the poster was for 3 teenagers who had never been reported missing. Sarah Brown and Daniel Smith, 2 of the missing teenagers, were found safe and sound with their families. Jack Miller does not exist.
Hello?
We hard cut to footage taken from the inside of the Crying Cave on July 18th, 1988, at 9:34 p.m. We hear a screeching from deep in the cave, and the man behind the camera asks out loud, "Hello?" He walks on further, eventually coming to a stop around a slight corner. We see two slanted globes shine strangely from around the corner, twisting vertically as we hear a deep, drawn-out croaking, and we cut to the man running back through the caves. We hear screaming and his hurried footsteps. We see as he comes across a hole in the floor, a light shining up through it at the ceiling, painting an eerie spotlight above in the rock of the cave. We see the cameraman look down, the video distorting slightly, and we watch as the man falls into the hole, screaming the entire way down. The screen cuts out, and after a second we hear what may be surviving audio of the fall, because I swear that between the glitched noises, I can hear the cameraman's screams. We open back on that idyllic forested spot, its burning waves of amber encrusted by birdsong. We see the body fall, just as we did before, in the top left of the blue sky. The screen fades to black, and we start our next chapter. The signal starts with another warning screen, reading, "This tape is a reconstruction of events that transpired at Research Station Bravo in the Arctic from 1980 to 1983. The footage was scavenged from the remains of the station. There are significant jumps in time throughout the reconstruction, and some of the footage has been severely damaged or completely lost." We are shown the picture of a balding old man with serious eyes, lined deeply with age, and a full, dark beard glaring into the camera. Underneath it reads, "Dr. John Walker. Remember this face." Under his name we read, "Walker develops the first machine capable of sending and receiving signals from outside our universe. In theory, if a signal is sent out, other parallel universes should send out a signal at the same time. This will allow us to establish contact with a parallel universe and open a channel of communication." We cut to a program boot screen. Copyright 1980, Atom Laboratories. It completes booting and initializing core systems, then loads something called Eve. We go to a screen with a white dot in the middle of a black field. Eve PNG or Eve Ping at the top. February 3rd, 1980, and a 10-second countdown beneath it. We watch as the white dot sends out an expanding ring from itself. And after a tense moment, from the void on the screen fades in another ring, sent from another white dot in the lower right of the screen. We cut away, seeing establishing connection in the top left, and PW-1 or Parallel World 1. A loading bar fills up underneath it, and we see the words Eve Com at the top, version 1.0 in the bottom left, PW-1 in the bottom center, and the date of February 3rd, 1980 in the bottom right. At 11:23 p.m., a message is received stating "Hello World," a nice little coding reference. We see a response is quickly sent, a simple "wow." Perhaps a reference to the famous WOW signal that was received in 1977. If you don't know, the WOW signal was for a long time seen as some of the strongest evidence for alien life, and got its name because the scientist that received this signal wrote WOW in the margins beside it in his paper. The next screen tells us that after a few days of communications, the researchers decided to conduct the 3-image test. This test asks them to provide 3 images, being nature, a dog, and themselves. We're shown the images received, and everything looks very similar to the nature, dogs, and ourselves we know and love so dearly. Mountain and trees for nature, a pug for a dog, because Of course, they create torture genetic anomalies for funsies as well in other parallel universes, and a woman who would be just as comfortable serving school lunches or elbow deep in someone's mouth for a root canal. Normal as blood pudding. We read, having passed the test, we propose collaborating with them to enable travel between our universes. They agreed. Back on the Eve ping screen, we see the date is now November 26th, 1981, and there is the central dot of the universe we started in, and the lower right dot of the parallel one attempting to establish travel. We see that almost 2 years after making contact, a third signal is sent, reaching both parallel existences. We're told that on November 26th, 1981, we detected a strange signal coming from a more distant parallel universe. We see once again the establishing connection screen, with PW2 or Parallel World 2 at the bottom center. Loading completes, and the screen and audio distort wildly, shaking and scrolling uncontrollably, coming to an abrupt stop. We see the Eve comm terminal, and also that it's been updated to version 1.2. At 3:31 a.m., we see the sent message, hello? And at 3:33, a follow-up, are you receiving me? After a pause, this second parallel universe responds with a laconic yes, and a cryptic, are you human? We're told that after a series of incredibly bizarre exchanges, they decided to quickly move forward with the 3-image test, receiving a barren wasteland of dead, spiky trees for nature, what looks to be a dead animal in the woods somewhere for a dog, and a blurred and deformed humanoid shape for themselves. We see that the connection to the world was immediately terminated. Brownie points for you, researchers. We see that 3 years of cooperation with Parallel World 1 culminated in the completion of the machine that would connect their worlds. The day finally arrives. We see that the 3 white dots are now in the EVE PCT, which I'm not too sure what the PCT could stand for. Let me know your guesses in the comments below. The date is December 23rd, 1983, and we see Parallel World 1 asking if they are ready at 10:25 p.m. A swift yes in reply. A 5-second countdown, and we watch as the link begins to establish itself. Very rapidly, by the way, until progress begins to slow at 90%, which is also when we see that the strange world in the bottom left sends out a signal of their own, aiming to intercept the fledgling travel connection. Parallel World asks, what is that? With the first group saying it's trying to intercept. They send in all caps to stop the connection, but yet we can't stop now in response. We see I will stop it is sent, and a red system damage warning flashes at the top of the screen. We see the message no is received, and another signal is sent from the central universe, revealing dozens of realities that had stayed silent until that point. The message we see you is received over and over again. Something tells us that the doors to our world are open. The text glitches, and instead of receiving a new message is just in the place of the old one, saying who knows what might enter. I told you it was going to get good. We are now firmly into the cosmic horror of this series, and some of the more perceptive of you may have started to piece together why those first few vignettes may not have been the non sequiturs that they seemed at the surface. We will get into that a little bit further down in the video, but for now, we start seeing those threads being firmly woven for the tapestry later on, right? The next chapter, Interference, opens on a KTNA7 North Alaska news screen, Smooth, relaxing jazz accompanies the sleepy snowdrifts above the mountain landscape behind this night's schedule. We see it is 6:29 p.m., and at 6:30 there will be the morning news. 8 o'clock starts a holiday movie marathon, afternoon news at 12:30, and a holiday special at 2 p.m. We then see a logo screen for Adam Laboratories, open space with the spinning globe in the center, the words looking beyond the stars underneath. We cut to a title screen that says Fear of the Unknown, The Forest, copyright Adam Home Entertainment 1980. We cut to a fireplace with Happy Holidays, Arcadia TV in the bottom left, and the Arcadia TV mountain logo in the bottom right. The time turns 6:30, and the KTNA news broadcast begins. We hear a slow and distorted ticking as a news story about an explosion in the Arctic plays on the screen, saying, "A late-night explosion in northern Alaska sent shockwaves through the region, with hundreds reportedly feeling and hearing the blast. The explosion was so strong that it caused windows to shatter and doors to rattle for hundreds of miles. The explosion has also caused widespread television interference in the region. Some have even reported seeing a face in the static of their televisions." The screen fills with black static, and in its midst, we see a happy face before it going black. The slow tick-tock echoing into the void. The smiley face returns, and beneath it reads, "Hello world. You did not realize the consequences of your actions. We will not interfere with what is coming. We will not help. This is not a warning. This is your death sentence." A rumbling raises in intensity in the background as a monstrous face begins to phase into the screen, while the words "We will watch you suffer" are typed into the decaying feed. Hard cut back to the tranquil snow of the live KTNA 7 broadcast, saying breaking news. The explosion reportedly originated from a research station owned and operated by Adam Laboratories. The final video in this first chapter of the series is called Emergency Broadcast System. It opens on a red background with a high-pitched alarm playing over it. EBS and Emergency Broadcast System are emblazoned across the top of the screen, and as the alarm stops, a text bar scrolls out the message, "This is the Emergency Broadcast System. The United States federal government is issuing a mandatory evacuation order for the entire northern region of Alaska. Anyone currently in the northern region of Alaska must evacuate south immediately. Avoid any unusual persons or objects that you may encounter." We see a diagram of Alaska, with almost its entire northern half filled in red. Below it says, "If you are north of Selawik, Allakaket, or Fort Yukon, evacuate south immediately." As red, downward-facing arrows begin to pulse urgently, it says you have 72 hours to evacuate. If you do not evacuate, you will be considered hostile and may be shot. A 72 hours countdown begins in blazing red, with "Evacuate Now" beneath it. So, that wraps up the first half of this series. I'll be honest, it almost lost me at the beginning, but it definitely set its hook right at the end with some really, really juicy bait. So, just to recap, we see some anomalous stuff at the bottom of the sea. We see a public service announcement about Mandela Catalog replacement-esque mythical creatures, and then we're thrust right into the middle of parallel universes, making contact with the exact wrong reality. What was with that third universe just biding its time to intercept the travel link? Did it anticipate for that to happen? Did it have a hand in slowing down the connection link? Why did it send out a pulse from the original universe? Why did only 2 parallel realities respond when after that hijacked signal went out, we saw dozens of dots on the screen? It had been years since that initial signal. We're just going to have to continue to find out. The official chapter 2 of the series is called Paradise Lost, and starts with a video titled The Great North Alaskan Disaster. Arcadia Entertainment presents, in association with the state of Alaska, The Great North Alaskan Disaster. We see a red notice reading the following footage has been approved by the United States federal government to be used in this film. The footage has never been shown to the public until now. A familiar face scrolls down from the thick static on screen. Dr. John Walker, the pioneer of interdimensional communication, turns towards us, and the screen cuts to a title card. 1. The Catalyst, 1983, December 23rd. We see a room at night, a television showing the retro 8-bit progression of a very Faith-like game. A large alarm clock above the screen reads 10:28. The darkness out the window on the left absolute. At once, there was a massive flash, burning brightly beyond the sleeping mountains in the distance. The blaze begins to darken, and the screen cuts to black. I want to point out that we don't hear anything coming from the direction of the flames, like an echoing explosion or really anything. All we have is just the sight, the light, this sustained bright burst off in the distance. We are told that a large explosion occurs at 10:28 p.m. in North Alaska. Moments after the explosion, a distress call is made. The following is an audio recording of the distress call.
Mayday! This is Winter Station Bravo! Can anyone hear me? I repeat, this is Winter Station Bravo! Can anyone hear me? This is... Can anyone fucking hear me? Hello? Is anyone out there? Wow! It's fucking gone! What the fuck do I do? No, it can't be. He actually did it.
The picture of a bright young man in a clean lab coat comes into view, a warbling texture droning in the background. We see the man labeled as Ian Parker. Remember that name. His voice comes in panicked, looking for anyone to answer him. He's at Research Station Bravo, which was, evidently, stationed so near the location of the explosion that the entire lab is gone. He panics in his desperation, saying, "They did it." Ian falls silent, his wailing sobs coming back over the line before the video fades to black. So, when Parallel World 2 intercepted the signal meant for Parallel World 1, they were not only able to create a much more different signal of their own, it seems that doing so caused an explosion in Dr. John Walker's lab, the only survivor we know of being Ian Parker, who was able to call someone for help, but apparently no one actually responded to him, they only just sat there and recorded his confused cries for help. Which, I mean, alright. We see another title card, 2, Evacuation, 1983, December 25th. We see the same emergency broadcast system alert as before being played on someone's television, and we're told that it was activated on Christmas Day at 5:28 a.m. An evacuation order is put in place on northern Alaska. All radio and television stations broadcast the message. We're shown a flyer saying evacuate now. The north of Alaska is filled in with large red arrows pointing downward. We see the words, your area is located within the evacuation region. Time is critical. You have until December 28th, 5:30 a.m. We're told the government drops thousands of these flyers all over Alaska. The goal was to reach and inform even the most isolated people. Unfortunately, this was quickly stopped when 2 planes mysteriously disappeared during their planned drop routes. We hard cut to the interior of a dark room, looking out of its window onto the roiling flames of the blast's aftermath. We hear the emergency broadcast system blaring in the background. The clearest words we hear are about anyone remaining in North Alaska after 72 hours will be considered hostile and may be shot. The screen goes black, and we are told that while many were able to evacuate, others were not so lucky, and there are hundreds of people still missing. After the evacuation, the government released a brief statement. Due to significant environmental hazards arising from an unforeseen event at a research facility in North Alaska, the region is now considered extremely dangerous. Entry to this region is now strictly prohibited for the foreseeable future. Another title card, 3, The Wall, 1989. A green background, labeled Alaskan Wildlife, fuzzes into view. A brown bear's face turns in the center. Below it reads, Alaska's wilderness was once a pulsating heart of life, but the landscape has since changed dramatically. The bear fades to some deer, and we read today, most species find refuge in the southern regions due to the great animal migration of '84. So we learn that 2 days after Parallel World 2 intercepted the travel link, an emergency evacuation order went into effect. We also learned that over the course of 1984, almost all the animals have fled the evacuation zone as well, choosing instead to shelter in the southern region of Alaska. 5 years after the migration, our story picks up a dark red screen titled The Wall. We're told that the construction of the wall caused the north and south to become alienated. We see a very large concrete wall in a forest, looming over dwindling nearby trees. The wall stretches across Alaska and runs along the Canadian border. The wall is patrolled by the military, and no one is allowed to enter. It is illegal to film or take images of the wall without government approval. We see an ominous explanation, a simple, it protects us from the unknown. And as the picture of the wall stretches larger, I want to point out what may very well be a body in the bottom left of this picture. The screen fades to black static. We see another title card, this one labeled 4 and nothing else. Someone stands before the Alaskan wall. A no trespassing sign emblazoned with a skull and crossbones screams to turn back now in their feeble flashlight's range. The tall grass dances in the night, while bird calls twist strangely in the low-hanging boughs. A strange, mechanical Goliath screams from somewhere in the distance, its presence rumbling an echo into the camera itself, fuzzing the picture with heavy static. We come back to a zoom in on the moon. The camera pushes in closer, and we see a twinkling white dot beside the pale flesh of the moon. The shot lingers for a painful moment, then cuts to black. Our next video is called Exclusion Zone Safety. The screen opens on a password being typed into the top left of the screen, accessing the details of an incident report labeled 231283-6482. Date of incident, October 3rd, 1989. Location, Allakaket, Alaska. Casualties, 1 male, injured, 1 female, missing. Ethan Marshall, 34, male. Amnesia, ruptured eardrums, fractured skull, 4 fractured ribs, brain hemorrhage. Chloe Marshall, 11, female. Status unknown. Data transfer complete. An Atom Laboratories safety video begins to play, titled Employee Training Tape Number 3, Exclusion Zone Safety, Fissures. Below that, we see that red clearance is required before viewing. The next screen says Welcome to Atom Laboratories, with a waving figure in the middle of the screen. It continues, these introductory training tapes will inform you on the safety precautions you will need to take inside the exclusion zone. This tape will exclusively focus on the topic of fissures. If you have any further questions after viewing this tape, please contact a supervisor. The figure moves to its side and another comes into view, wearing an extremely managerial bow tie to denote its higher office. An outline of Alaska zooms into its northern portion, revealing a line drawn between the deep red of the northern half and the blackness of the southern region. 3 white dots are shown along the length of the demarcation, labeled from left to right, Selawik, Allakaket, and Fort Yukon. A date comes up below, 1987. A handful of white dots emerge in the northern red, and as the year turns to 1988, the dots multiply, continuing to do so at an exponential rate until in October 1989, with a sea of white dots in the northern region, we see a single red dot partially occlude the white dot of Allakaket. This is the moment, October 3rd, 1989, that caused the incident in the report we just saw. We are told that fissures only occur in the exclusion zone, are highly dangerous, and can cause serious injury or death. The figure in its arm sling and bandaged angle helping to sell that point nicely. As the figure's wounds heal magically before our eyes, we are told that there are 2 types of fissures, stable and unstable. A picture of towering green trees in the inky blackness of a starless night sky replaces the figure, reading, "A fissure is what links our world to the unknown." The video cuts harshly to a full screen of the picture. High-pitched whines and squeaks disturb the strange trees, distorted in the format switch. In the static before the scene changes final, however, we see additional notes to the incident report from earlier, saying, small traces of a redacted substance found in father's system, similar to John Doe in '88. We're shown that unstable fissures have very short lifespans, usually only lasting for a few milliseconds. These fissures are far more common, with up to hundreds forming in an average year. Stable fissures, as the name implies, have much longer lifespans, anywhere from minutes to years. Only 15 stable fissures have ever been recorded, 4 of which are still active to this day. We see that the oldest stable fissure is located at Ground Zero and has been there since the beginning. When Parallel World 2 intercepted the travel connection from base reality to Parallel World 1, it established a stable fissure. The longest lived stable fissure at that. We know from listening to the emergency call from Ian Parker that this incident destroyed the lab entirely, causing what was assumed to be an explosion. Does this mean each fissure that opens is akin to an explosion as well? Why are they spreading? And how is the process speeding up? In the static of the changing screens, we yet again see more information. This time, an employee list for something called Site Bravo. This is the location of the lab that became Ground Zero. On the left is a column of names, and on the right is a status. We watch as the first 4 names are given the status of missing, cutting away before we can see the status of Ian Parker. We can also see further down the list that Dr. John Walker's name is also here. So wait, if the signal being intercepted caused the lab to explode, and we heard Ian Parker himself screaming about how the lab was gone, why is everyone labeled missing? The next screen is labeled, How do you detect a fissure? Where we are told that you must always carry the electrostatic field detector, or EFD, with you at all times. In the event that the EFD is missing, and I pay special attention to the quotation marks around missing here, right? Like, what does that actually mean? Are they stealing these things from these people? But we don't really have any more information, but I just wanted to point that out. It is kind of weird. It says that in the event that the EFD is missing, you must look for the following signs that a fissure is about to strike. We're told that the first sign of an impending fissure is an overwhelming sense of dread or fear. And I actually really like how the pupils bounce around frantically in these animated eyes. We're told that a coming fissure will cause local insects and animals to fall silent, and electrostatic activity in the area rises. The hair on your head may begin to stand on edge. And we see a really kind of goofy picture of some young boys experiencing the static electricity effect running through their hair, making it stand on edge. I actually wonder if perhaps this picture is significant to the creator of the series. I don't know. The hair on your head may begin to stand on edge, and the final sign will be a strange sound with an unknown origin. We're told that much like a tornado, once you hear it, it's too late to leave. We read that when a fissure strikes, it does so in a very violent manner. A white dot is labeled the eye, and as a large circle encompasses this eye, we are told that a fissure will force the air around it away, causing a sonic boom. The amount of force a fissure can generate varies with each one. We see the ring around the dot labeled as the corona, and are told that anything within the corona when the fissure strikes will be transported and replaced with something from the unknown. We see that the most common fissure-related injury is ruptured eardrums, confirming that the previous incident report was in response to a fissure strike. We are shown a nighttime sky with a bright light in the distance, being told that at night you will be able to see a brief flash that is created when a fissure has struck, exactly like the one we saw from the window directly after Parallel World 2's interception. We see that a fissure has the ability to transport anything through what is being called the abyss. There's a hemisphere diagram. A white dot at its base is labeled Our Universe, while the void beyond the hemisphere is labeled the abyss. The size of what is transported through the abyss can vary, but usually is no larger than the size of an average man. We see that the most common things found from fissures are small items, being shown a diagram of a VHS tape, cassette tape, and a book that has a depiction of the autophage Ouroboros snake, symbolizing infinity and recurring cycles. that may be an important touch moving forward. We see that in more recent years, there's been an increase in biological entities, and fast cut to a black screen that tells us to never communicate with objects or entities, and to never enter a fissure, because you will not return. We see a message typed in the top left, the same font and positioning as the password that was typed in, saying the data was correct. The area is expanding. And just before the video ends completely, we get the most hidden message through the static yet, saying, "Get everyone in the response program ready. Prepare to inform the public." Okay, so we learn that since Parallel World 2 made contact with base reality, there have been these rifts opening up in the northern reaches of Alaska. We learn that these rifts are like reality bombs, and when they open up, everything roughly human-sized inside is transported through the abyss, and replaced matter filling the space forcefully expels all of the atmosphere outwards in a concussive blast of pressure and light. We learn that after evacuating northern Alaska, more of these rifts began to open, bringing more and more objects and then entities through. We learned that on October the 3rd, 1989, a rift opened south of the evacuation zone, causing injuries and transporting a man's 11-year-old daughter through the abyss to somewhere unknown. We see that some kind of detectable substance was found in the man's blood after having been in contact with a fissure, and that it has been officially determined to be a spreading issue, no longer able to be kept from the public. Our next video in the series is called Welcome to Paradise, opening on an Arcadia software logo. An eye-opening wipe brings us to a listlessly rolling waves of tall grass, autumnal trees blazing in the background under a frozen blue sky. As an object far in the distance creeps ever closer into view from beneath the tree line, we see below Arcadia Software Presents and some reviews. The first reads, "An enjoyable way to relax" by Cyber Reviews. "Fun for the whole family" by Games Weekly. "An unforgettable experience" by Simply Good Games. And as the object finally comes into the foreground, we see it's the cover art for an old school computer game called The Farm, Welcome to Paradise. The review, "It spoke to me" by Unknown beneath it. It spoke to me. Remember that. The field gives way to a black screen that fades to a pale yellow towards the bottom, with standard 90s TV ad format showing that the farm costs $59.99 plus tax, and is Arcadia Software's first entry in the gaming market. Available soon on personal computers. Available while supplies last. Mail order only. Not responsible for serious injury or death. And the official Arcadia seal of quality displayed proudly. We cut to a heavily distorted screen of what may be Alaskan mountains, with a text ticker running on the screen that reads, "Tunnels were found beneath the North Alaskan wall today. Personal documents were also scattered around and the screen fades to black. We're then brought to another Midnight Safety Guide screen, this one called Episode 3, Night Stalkers. We're shown a black screen with the words "curfew in effect" plastered across the top. A high-pitched frequency plays with "lock your doors and windows, stay inside your home, and have a firearm or weapon ready" filling the screen. We see it as 9 p.m., and another text ticker scrolls by beneath this morbid warning. The ticker says, "Emergency services will be unavailable during this time. Curfew will end at 8 a.m. The high-pitched frequency bleeds into the deep, warbling texture we've heard through the entire series, and the screen cuts to black, ending the video. The most recent installment of the series is called The Farm.
I am afraid. Have we made a mistake?
I've gone over the scenario in my head over and over. What if the signal goes beyond what we know, far beyond our estimations, continually traveling the endless abyss forever? We knew about the possibility of it happening. We took the necessary precautions. But still, it is a non-zero chance. We would be inviting things that could bend our reality. Things beyond our comprehension. A single reply. There's a reason only one world answered. The others, silent. They are hiding. They are afraid of what lies at the edge of the abyss. My God. What have we done?
We open on the black screen that says 1980 at the bottom, quickly followed by the name Ian Parker. Ian talks about his regrets and worries in regards to the signal Site Bravo generated, about where it might end up on its endless journey through the abyss, how they knew there were risks. Ian tells us there's a reason only one world answered their call. All the other worlds stay silent, because they're afraid of what lies on the other side of the abyss. We hard cut to a red warning plastered at the top of a black screen. White letters phase in underneath the warning, saying that the following footage has been declared a severe cognito hazard. For anyone who doesn't know, a cognito hazard is information that is dangerous to even be aware of. Think being a witness to some organized criminal activity, right? They might come after you. Same concept. The warnings continue, saying that the viewing of this footage will cause severe psychological damage, and that continued viewing of the tape is considered accepting that fact. No one wants to get sued, after all. We open on a classic 90s VHS blue background, the word "Congratulations" above the white outline of a head. Underneath it says, "Due to your high mental resilience, you have been selected to participate in an exciting experiment." I'm fairly certain this selection has less to do with mental resilience and more to do with something we'll see later on. The message reeks of corporate shenanigans, the phrase "exciting experiment," activating the wrong parts of the brain than I think was intended. We see them claim that we have developed a machine that allows us to record footage of what you see. The diagram they show above the text lets us know the last thing they're talking about is a camcorder. It looks like an old school radio /TV /tape player. There seems to be a small screen in the middle, a large reel that can perhaps fit a movie-size film reel on the left, and what looks to be a cassette player on the right. I would assume that since it's a VHS-esque video, they do indeed have camcorders at this time, so why would they need to invent an entirely new machine to record what someone sees? We see that there are plans to utilize this machine in a broader application, with the assertion that they need to test and validate this new technology's effectiveness before widespread adoption. Apparently, this is the very first test of the technology. The screen tears a bit, showing us that whoever this video was intended for was scheduled for surgery to implant a small device in their brain. So we know for a fact that Elon Musk owns the company. We see what looks like a receiver, or possibly a port of some kind, being placed into the diagram's brain, being explained with, "This device reads the visual information that your brain receives and sends it through the machine for processing." The text fades as we see a rather large cable being plugged into the port at the back of the skull. We see that apparently the conversion process from sight in the subject to data on the machine takes several weeks, so the subject is instructed to document what they see separately for future comparison. We cut to a deep red screen labeled "Safety Procedures," telling the subject to isolate themselves, because isolation is the key to staying focused and preventing unnecessary psychological damage to others. The subject is told to turn off the lights, because it will help reduce the visual hallucinations in their peripheral view. The subject is instructed to wear headphones because they will muffle the auditory hallucinations that might occur. Isn't this the first time that they're using this technology? How do they know about all of these preventative measures, right? Huh. The last bullet point instructs the subject to control their fear, saying that doing so will keep them alive. The screen says it can become stronger when you are afraid. We see another screen, the same deep red as the previous one, with the word remember at the top. Beneath, it says, you are the messenger. The questions are written in the notebook in front of you. Document all your observations and the answers you receive in this notebook. Our country and this company thank you for your service. Okay, so we see that the government has partnered with Arcadia to produce this program to deliver and receive some messages with something, most likely an entity that came through a fissure from Parallel World 2. It seems that this messenger will be physically connected to some kind of machine that will allow them to record first contact. Who is watching this video, learning about their upcoming procedure, right? Like, who's sitting here waiting for this to happen to them? We see a distorted screen, and actually, I want to point out the look of this distortion. We see a red shift on the words, which seem to all have their first letters red, while the rest bleed into a white. It also looks like the edges of the screen kind of fisheye around. I won't say more just yet, but keep this specific aesthetic in mind moving forward. In mind. As best as I can make out through the distorted edges, the text on screen reads, The Farm, recorded October 1992. Video duration, 4 hours, 38 minutes. Threat, severe cognitohazard. I can't read the next classifier, but the description says, footage contains first contact with, and we see a white bar redacting something. It continues with, the entity resides in a computer video game called The Farm. Subject 294B is tasked with asking 5 pre-written questions. Okay, so when they say first contact, does that mean Subject 294B's first contact and they've sent at least 293 other subjects in? Or is this attempt at contact the first one to be successful? What do they mean by the entity resides in a game called The Farm? Does that mean something from Parallel World 2 infected a game somehow? Is it in every copy? The screen goes black, and we see the words Session Start in that same warped, red-shifted font. We next see an old-school text prompter labeled The Farm by Arcadia Software. So this is the game we saw advertised, or some iteration of it. And in true text-adventure fashion, a text pops up describing to us a scene. It says, a loud buzzing pierces the darkness, dragging you from your sleep. You squint your eyes to see the faint red glow of an alarm clock. In the white line at the bottom of the screen, we can see the live typing of what we assume to be Subject 294B, responding with, turn off the alarm. In response, we read, the constant buzzing of your alarm clock finally ends with a satisfying click. You slump back under the covers, staring at the faint patterns on the ceiling. A strange feeling stirs within you. The animals, they are hungry. The screen fuzzes with black static. Suddenly, we have a first-person view of someone standing in front of a large, closed barn door in the middle of the night. A poor excuse for a flashlight throwing muddy beams on the redwood planks. We see the flashlight sway, Our view bobs in and out, like an actual FPV. The word finally, in that red shifted font, fades in and out at the bottom of the screen. Replacing it are the words, "I have been waiting." A cut to black static, and the text prompter is back. It says, "You are standing in front of the barn doors. To the right is the cornfield. To the left, you can hear the animals." We see, "Open the barn," typed below. Getting an error, command not recognized, in response. "Open the barn doors" is then typed again, and before any error code or response, we cut to a black screen that says, "For 17 minutes, Subject 294B repeatedly attempted to open the barn doors." We question 294B's reasoning for doing this. They describe feeling as though they are physically standing in front of the barn doors, finishing with, "They feel an urge to open them." So here we basically confirm that Subject 294B's brain is hardwired to some kind of machine, which is recording what he can see in his mind's eye, and is being walked through some kind of... Come on, let's go. Gave you a chance, you're being too loud, shithead. My dog. He's a good boy, but he's a whiny baby. Damn Rottweilers. So here we basically confirm that Subject 294B's brain is hardwired to some kind of machine, which is recording what he can see in his mind's eye, and is being walked through some kind of text adventure. I think the terminal we see 294B communicating in is a view from the other end, from the researcher's screen watching on. The researchers might not be aware of any experience beyond the text adventure of the farm for their subjects, and it seems that they were unaware of anything in the barn itself. Perhaps that lends credence to this being the first contact with the entity at all, although the fact that they know it's there keeps that in question. It looks like while Subject 294B was standing in front of the barn, they were spoken to by something other than the researchers. Who created this farm, by extension the barn, and how could something hide inside it in the first place? How could they speak with 294B without the researchers knowing? Is the farm some inner realm of thought that the text adventure is geared to guide the subject towards? If so, why was it being sold as an actual game? So many questions. We cut to a system error screen. The terminal comes back, prompting 294B with, "After a long day, you finally lie your head down on your bed. You think about what tomorrow may bring. You are all ready." The text stops short, and the terminal resets to black. The question, "Do you hear that?" is typed, and the sounds of distorted bellowing animals and stampeding hooves fills our ears. We see a crudely rendered 2D barn face, some hay bales to its left, a cornfield to its right. The screen distorts, fish-eyeing at the edges and turning off-center, like it took its back foot and turned it away from us. "Do you hear that?" comes up at the bottom of the screen again, and the hooves and groaning animals coalesce into a strangely mechanical whine. The red barn flashes on and off the screen, stretching and distending more and more each time. The screen zooms and twists, and we see more words being typed in the red-shifted font. Do you hear that? The cries of thousands. In tilted text, we see the words "I still remember" being typed out slowly, before a bloody animal skull with sharp fangs fades into distorted view to the right of the words, a strange cry coming from it. The screen hard cuts to a blue background reading "Critical Systems Error." A critical error has been detected, and the system is shutting down to prevent damage to your computer. We are then told that Subject 294B suffered a severe seizure, and even after recovery is feeling overwhelmed with fear at the thought of continuing. We see the words, "We warn Subject 294B that if they do not continue, they will lose their chance for societal integration." They reluctantly agreed to continue. So 294B is some kind of prisoner, perhaps, and was offered a chance at freedom if they participated in the farm. It makes me wonder about that first screen, saying that they were selected for their mental resilience. What if that wasn't really a factor at all, and this Arcadia is just plumbing prisons for cannon fodder with the government's blessing, throwing them onto the growing corpse wall at the feet of the imposing abyss? We are brought to another black screen, the word "contact" at its base. "Would you like to continue" is typed at the top, and 294B replies with a yes. We're brought to a slightly different text box, the colors distorting from blacks and whites to blues and reds, the same strange fisheye effect flaring the edges a bit as the words "Do you hear that? Something is wrong" are displayed. The text box disappears, leaving just those words against the black, a deep, rumbling texture in our ears. "294B is given another text adventure prompt, though this time it's against the pure blackness, not even the simple terminal to frame them. It says, "As you begin to turn, something catches your eye. You notice something in the cornfield." A thrumming buzz gets louder, and black static cuts to the first-person view of a cornfield in the middle of the night. A lazy flashlight throws a sickly amber across the swaying stalks, and there is definitely something in the right-hand part of the field, hidden in the corn. The words "turn off the light" phase at the bottom of the screen, and the light goes out. It seems that we are now following the communication between 294B and the entity directly. In the blackness, we hear an approaching rustle. Two red blobs wink out of the murky night, and we see "I know why you are here" in that red-shifted font. The text slowly fades into existence, and the red orbs follow suit, winking in and out, multiplying and dying at will. It says, "I warn you, the knowledge you seek will change nothing." As it says this, The screen fades into a picture or recording of some trees in the middle of the night, with a faded image overlaid on top that kind of looks like a radioactive warning symbol, then fades to black. We see 294B type, "Where did you come from?" the text tilting strangely. The entity responds, "I am from a world similar to yours. It was lost to the abyss. I heard the signal. I entered your world." As it finishes its answer with, "I have been here ever since," we see footage of someone's feet as they toss and turn in bed, shot through an open door. Is this 294B? It definitely doesn't look like a lab to me, much more like a bedroom. No idea. We see 294B ask, "Are there more of you?" To which it responds directly with, "Yes." I actually really like the way the next words bleed onto the screen, because at first we see "more," and a second later, we see "many," revealed by an inky blob's retreat right next to the word "more." We are shown what looks like the back of a hooded figure pointing into the distance, saying the others are weak below it. We watch 294B pause a bit before asking his next question, the cursor flashing for just too long in the embryonic texture of the space he's in. He asks, "What is your purpose here?" The thing responds that it's observing its new home. It says that Earth is not the first, that Earth is going to continue the cycle. We hear 294B's heartbeat spike as the thing tells him that Earth will continue the cycle before they arrive. That bloody animal skull, teeth like steak knives, fades into the left portion of the screen before everything fades to black. We cut to the cornfield again, and in the sway of the failing light we see a disturbing creature, bulbous and twitching, screaming and crying, and then blackness. A quick cut back to the swaying corn stalks, a distorted wailing piercing the night, and then nothing. Text at the bottom of a black screen tells us that Subject 294B begins to scream uncontrollably. Before we were able to interrupt the session, 294B and the rest is redacted by a large white bar. The buzzing electrical whine grows, and we see the words, "Welcome to Paradise." Somber, sallow notes play in the background, while the swirling mass of ink and red eyes tells 294B, "You have forgotten. No one believes you. Your blood has been tainted by the abyss. I know your true value. You will play a game, a real game. If you win, I will answer your final question. You will be free. Let's begin."
Remember my name.
We see a human hand gripping a revolver, staring into an empty void. We then see the red, 2D landscape of the barn we saw before, only much more of the area is rendered this time. We see the cornfield and a church at the bottom, a house with a fence and a truck next to a large tree at the top, and a yellow sprite in the middle. The faith vibes are really hitting hard now. It seems that 294B has been put into an 8-bit bullet hell, where he needs to kill the waves of oncoming blobs, for now. I'm not really sure what those are. The roof rips off the house, and those red eyes set in their blanket of thick shadows watches on. 294B hangs on until the game's first wave of bullshit comes by in the form of an impenetrable wall of moose. They have to shoot a hole for themselves while dealing with all of the other enemies on the screen, or get run over. Remember that for 294B, this is all first person. I suppose it takes even longer to get the 3D render from the machine he's hooked up to. He clears the screen and makes a hole in the new wave of moose coming from the left-hand side. We see what looks to be a bear emerge, and yet another wave of moose. 294B has done a great job so far, but it doesn't look like it's going to be going too well for him now. The bear tanks 7 shots before the screen phases to black, and we hear someone, presumably subject 294B, starting to freak out. I can't tell what he says at first, but I definitely catch him screaming that he doesn't remember his own name. He spawns back in the bullet hell, and it's here that I want to rave about the soundtrack. There's something about how the 8-bit notes tear and scrape against each other here, coming out staggered and heavy. It just really sets off the desperation, you know? An absolute perfect pairing for the mood. 294B squares off with a bear, confident at the lack of other enemies to contend with, when 2 walls of moose come rushing at him faster than he can react. We hear the actual voice of the entity say Ian Parker's name, and it says that it is not the one to fear. It says that his role is not yet over. We see a chair by a TV on a table, its screen rapidly looping gray static. The words, "This world will become the vessel," underneath. 294B is instructed by the entity to ask it the final question. He types out, "What are you?" thing says, I am no longer human. I can take any form. I initiated the cycle. I created the first signal. We hear ragged screams coming from 294B, tearing their way through the heavy weight of the droning winds. Static coats the screen, and that animal skull once again fades into view, jaw open and ready to bite. The text says, "You know who I am," and the subject's screams are cut short before the video goes black. So, what the hell happened there, right? It seems like Parallel World 2, making contact with base reality, infected some text-adventure video game with an entity requiring a human to be physically wired into a brand new piece of technology to speak with it. The entity exhibits an extreme amount of control over the hard and software that the researchers have access to, seemingly able to up and downscale dimensions at will. It seems that this entity has come to observe the ruination of Earth at the hands of that which lies beyond the abyss in the aftermath of sending out a signal into the broader universe. It seems like this is kind of a pastime for Parallel World 2 as well, and I wonder if all of the worlds revealed in that intercepted beacon flash are now at risk as well. Perhaps that is the cycle that we keep hearing referenced, right? We learn this entity was once human, which is very interesting because it makes me think that there might be some time travel kind of effect going on here. My sneaking suspicion is that the entity is Dr. John Walker. That's how I think that it is. I think that Dr. John Walker becomes the entity in the moment that they send out, in the moment that Parallel World 2 intercepts and research site Bravo explodes, right? I think that that's probably what's going on here, especially because, and I was keeping in mind for this while I was narrating, we see that the recording, this whole thing in the farm, was in 1992. So that actually gives years after the emergence of the fissures, right? So I believe that it's going to be Dr. John Walker, but that's just my own personal theory. We learn that this entity was once human, but that they are no longer bound to any one shape. They started the cycle, and apparently someone knows who they are. Speaking of, it occurs to me that Ian Parker could very well have either been observing these events the same way we were, or perhaps Subject 294B is himself Ian Parker. Either way, the entity directly addressing Ian Parker is a beautifully chilling addition. I do think that the entity is addressing Ian Parker in saying that you know who I am. Another reason why I think it's probably John Walker in some way, shape, or form. What is the thing beside the moon? Anyway, I'm very interested to see where this series goes. Oh, I wasn't going anywhere with that. I was just posing the question to you. Because if you go and look at Chilling Abyss's channel, which you definitely should go over and subscribe and be kept up to date for new installments in this series, you'll notice that even their channel icon, their profile picture or whatever, is that shot of the moon with that little dot right next to it. And what is that? Is that the entity that we're contacting now? What is it? Who knows? Thanks for sticking around. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. Sub to the channel, like and share the video around, do the things and click the buttons to let the algorithm actually know to show my stuff to people. At all, ever. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Unfortunately, this was quickly stopped when 2 planes mysteriously disappeared during their planned drop routes. We hard cut to the interior of a dark room, looking out of its window onto the roiling flames of the blast's aftermath. We hear the emergency broadcast system blaring in the background. Okay. Blaring in the background. Thor's balls, dude. All right. Make sure that... Hold on. Shit. I gotta shimmy again. There it is. That seems fine. The whole intent for this, by the way, and it should be painfully obvious for you guys at this point, is so that I can keep... Whoa, nope. Okay. So that I can keep all of this space for the video itself, right? So I'm trying to keep myself kind of sequestered here. It's a strange maneuver. Everything's reversed. I should have just kept it at straight up voiceovers. All right. Where were we? Oh, yeah, that's right. The background. Oh, shit. At least I'll make a good blooper.